Hello there, everyone. I was waiting for a moment because it looked like it was taking a little while for the stream to start. But either way, thank you all for joining me today. I am Raphael Garcia, and I'm back for episode 15 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Today is March 27th, Wednesday, March 27th, and we are now just a mere 11 days away from WrestleMania 35, a huge moment in professional wrestling annual event that we all look forward to. And we are once again looking down the pipe of what is going to be a very busy week, especially starting next weekend. Sorry about that. Had a slight issue to deal with. But yes, we are looking at what is going to be a very busy week starting next week. And that's what this show is about. This episode, we're going to talk more about WrestleMania weekend, which a lot of people are pushing to be named Wrestling Weekend. We're going to go into that topic and kind of explain exactly why. But we're going to look at all of the events and the showcases that are going on around WrestleMania 35, and we're actually not going to focus on the WWE event so much. So today, I'm going to do that preview next week once everything shakes out, because I think that even though we have 13 matches announced for WrestleMania 35, I think that there's still going to be some space for maybe 1 to 2 matches, especially within the women's division, added on. But we'll talk about that next week. Let me tweet this link out and let's get the show on the road. Sorry about this. Let me put that there. So yes, let's go ahead and just kind of dive right into it. I'm not really sure how this conversation started on Twitter a couple of days ago, but I was looking at what is going on around WrestleMania weekend, and I was curious for a full slate of events. So, what was originally WrestleMania weekend when I was a kid? WrestleMania weekend was just Sunday. I mean, it wasn't even a weekend; it was just a day. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't other events going on at the time, but there's no way in hell it was as big as it is today. Because if we look at the full docket of events that are scheduled to go on starting next week in New York and surrounding areas, there are 32. I believe that's the number I got to. 32 non-WWE events that are scheduled for WrestleMania weekend, starting on Wednesday, April 3rd, all the way through Tuesday, April 9th. So almost a week of action. If you add in the WWE events, you now go from 32 up to 38, and that includes the Hall of Fame and WrestleMania Access. I believe this graphic came from, let's see, what is this Twitter handle name? This Twitter handle name is the Wrestling Thoughts Podcast. I got this from, that was sent to me by, I think, Smark the Deaf Podcast. Yep, Smark the Deaf Podcast sent it to me. So yeah, this is a pretty thick docket. I mean, I wasn't expecting this many events. I heard there was a lot going on. There's been a lot of people talking about the amount of wrestling they're going to be watching starting next Wednesday. But man, I was blown away, and I was just like, this is not just about WWE anymore. Ian Williams of Vice Sports wrote last year about WrestleMania 34 that WrestleMania weekend has become a celebration around professional wrestling, and it's no longer all about WWE. And I totally agree with him on that. That last year was actually the first year I've taken some time out to watch a lot of the content that was going on around at the time. I mean, to be honest, I most of my watching experience has been within WWE, and I do kind of scamper around to other promotions now as my watching habits have grown. But last year was the first time I actually sat down and kind of watched a lot of other content that were going on around that weekend. I watched the Evolve show, I watched the Impact show, and I watched a couple other bits as well. But this year I want to kind of dive into it and watch a lot more. I was originally going to the G1 Supercard, which is on Saturday. It features New Japan and Ring of Honor, but I kind of changed that out. I'm pissed now that I'm not doing it. I may try to see if I can make something happen and get tickets last minute, but that's neither here nor there. That's not the purpose of this show. But I want to just talk about this slate of events and why I agree with Ian and why I really think that this is a celebration of professional wrestling. I think what stood out to me the most is this is. I originally looked at this and was like, this is for hardcore fans. These are for the fans that don't watch just WWE or may not watch WWE at all. This is for everyone else. And in my opinion, it's really inclusive. Now, let me backtrack before I say that, because professional wrestling as a whole is an industry that's not so inclusive. They struggle to make content, characters, and other aspects of the industry welcoming to various communities. I've written about that. I've read about that, and I'm actually writing a piece. I'm not going to announce that yet, but I've definitely written a lot of content about how the struggle has been being a minority and watching a lot of professional wrestling content, because it just doesn't always entice me to watch because it's not very inclusive. But that's neither here nor there. That's another podcast in its own right. This coming week of wrestling content, starting on the 3rd, definitely has a lot for everyone. I mean, it has the Shimmer event that's going to go on Friday, April 5th at 11 o'clock a.m. that features nothing but women. And Shimmer is one of those promotions I've been wanting to get into because it has, there's a lot of great women that have competed there. A lot of women are in the WWE now that have competed there. A lot of women that you probably won't see in the WWE, but who will be great entrants into the Mae Young Classic. A lot of them compete there and are featured on that show. You have the A Matter of Pride event on Thursday, which reaches out to the LGBTQ community within professional wrestling. You have major, or I'm not going to say major, you have bigger promotions like Impact and MLW that have shows on Thursday and Friday respectively. I'm definitely looking forward to that MLW show. I believe that was originally scheduled for Thursday, but I was going to try to go to that as well. And you have the obscure stuff like the Joey Janela events, Penis Party, his 2 spring break events that are on Friday and Saturday. Then you have like the hardcore space with Bloodsport that features some former MMA competitors. You have Combat Zone Wrestling on Saturday as well. There's just so much going on that it's going to be hard to follow everything, but thankfully, due to the advent of the internet, you'll be able to log in, stream a lot of this stuff, or go back and watch it on demand. So that's why I love this, and that's part of the reason why the WrestleMania weekend is possible, because WrestleMania has become like a travel weekend where people go and spend the whole week there. I was originally intending on doing that, as the event is just 2 hours away from me in New York, probably more like 3, but still it's close enough for me to get there, no problem. While I'm not doing that, a lot of people around the world are coming to this event and attending, are making a week out of it. I've been watching some of the peers that I have on Twitter talk about their commutes as they come over to the United States, and some people from out of the country are coming over to the United States and making this like a 2-week stay. So this is really an exciting time for the wrestling industry, and it's interesting that there's a conversation coming up about the future of WrestleMania weekend and what we should really recognize it as. I believe Jay Lethal was quoted in a piece today saying that the name of WrestleMania weekend is actually a misnomer, but it should be Wrestling Weekend, because it's a celebration of all things wrestling, even without the WWE involved. And this is important because the last couple of days, there's been news that the WWE is trying to stop organizations from being able to host big events in Tampa, where WrestleMania 36 will occur. And a lot of people are speculating this is because of New Japan and Ring of Honor coming together for the G1 Supercard on Saturday, which is going to be in Madison Square Garden. Now, this is such a big event, that G1 Supercard, that WWE moved NXT TakeOver from Saturday to Friday. Now, as you well know, NXT TakeOvers are usually on the Saturday before the big WWE pay-per-views on Sunday. For G1, and for New Japan and Ring of Honor to put together a card and actually force the WWE's hand to move their event is massive. I mean, I don't know if there's any other way that could have occurred other than those two organizations coming together. And what makes that even more important is that happened even before the G1 Supercard was shaped up. There were no matches announced. No names were really announced. Now, I think they just announced kind of like the big names, but nothing was set in stone before their presence forced the WWE to switch days for TakeOver. So that's pretty massive to see, and that's something that I think should be tracked, and is definitely worth noting. So when you look at this full card, as I mentioned, there's a lot to really watch and a lot that really kind of stands out. In my opinion, I'm looking at this whole docket, and I'll probably jump in on Thursday, April 4th, and catch the Evolve show that's scheduled for 12 o'clock. And then looking across the rest of the docket, I mean, I plan on watching Impact on Thursday, probably catch that A Matter of Pride event. I'm interested in seeing what that's about, and WrestleCon, that's also on Thursday and Friday. I forgot they have two events. I'm looking at the Shimmer event on Friday. I'm interested in the IPW event as well. You have NXT TakeOver, of course, MLW. I'm looking at that event. The G1 Supercard on Saturday, and of course WrestleMania on Sunday, which is where I'll be. And then they have the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania on Monday and Tuesday, respectively, in the Barclays Center. But as I mentioned, there's really something for everyone here. But what happens if the WWE has their way in Tampa and they're trying to talk to a lot of buildings that will be used to run events in 2019, and basically try to use their weight in the industry to convince these buildings to not host events around WrestleMania in 2020? And this is a pretty interesting story because it came out yesterday, I believe, and there's already been pushback to the idea. And I understand what the WWE is trying to do. They're basically trying to put themselves in a position where they're the only game in town and not necessarily have people be forced out, and not try to split people's audio or attention spans between their content and other content from these independent organizations. And while I get what they're doing, you have to wonder if that's going to backfire, because while the WWE is the big shark in the pond, that's clear. There's no arguing that. We've seen them face backlash, a growing backlash, for various reasons that have caused them to shift in their practices. I'll use an example, like when they were going to name the Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania after Fabulous Moolah. There was a huge outcry about that based off of allegations about how she treated women on the professional wrestling circuit during her heyday, that caused them to drop her name completely. They rarely talk about their events in Saudi Arabia now due to the backlash of their partnership with Saudi Arabia and the issues around the Jamal Khashoggi murder. Khashoggi murder. There's those issues. There's even something as minor as Kurt Angle's farewell opponent. He's set to retire after WrestleMania 35, and it was announced to be Baron Corbin, and everybody let out a loud collective groan, because, to be honest, I'm one of those people. Everyone's tired of Baron Corbin and they're not excited about him. So there's rumors going around that he's going to be written out of that match, and someone else is going to take his place, probably John Cena, which is, I would love to see that. Like I said, I'm going to be there. I would love to see that surprise change occur. But you have to wonder if the WWE making the effort to push out these independent promotions is going to help them, because I personally believe it's going to hurt them. The the action that's going on around WrestleMania gives them an opportunity, in my opinion, to see who fans are enjoying to watch. Because as professional wrestling continues to become an arms race, it's going to be important for the WWE that they stay in front of picking up the talent that they want. They're not going to be able to keep everybody. People are going to come to the organization. People are going to leave the organization. As we hear news about Dean Ambrose, potentially the Revival leaving, the Usos haven't signed a new deal. Top names aren't going to sign a new deal, and they're going to be able to use other promotions to leverage against the WWE. Most notably, organizations like AEW, New Japan, and other places that are building up their brands. And it's important for WWE to be able to look at WrestleMania weekend and say, hey, who is it that's drawing the biggest amount of attention, the largest amount of attention? I'll use Matt Riddle as an example at WrestleMania 34. He was already announced to have been signed, I believe, at this time by the WWE, so he was working through a lot of his dates. This man, over, I think, from a Thursday to like Sunday, something like that, something ridiculous. He had like 8 matches. Dude was doing double duty. He was putting on great matches each step of the way too, which, in my opinion, I was familiar with Matt Riddle from his UFC days. I wasn't so familiar with him as a pro wrestler. Still not the biggest fan of his as a pro wrestler, but that's neither here nor there because he's clearly over with the fan base. But watching him perform during that weekend in 2018 made me nod my head and say, okay, now I'm interested in seeing, I'm intrigued to see what he does once he goes to NXT and once he hits the main roster. I think they're really going to put a rocket on this man's back and shoot him to the moon, because what he did over that weekend really impressed me, and what he had been doing long before that impressed everyone else. The man is a star, and it's crazy to think that the UFC fighter who didn't win tough, I think it was like season 2 or 3, has really become a leader in the professional wrestling space when you look at those who have transitioned from mixed martial arts to professional wrestling. But I wouldn't know that if it wasn't. I wouldn't fully know that. I wouldn't have witnessed it firsthand if it wasn't for WrestleMania weekend in 2018. So you have to wonder what the WWE is going to, what the WWE stands to gain by cutting out their competition, for lack of a better term, around WWE, around the WrestleMania weekend in 2020. I do agree with Lethal that, yeah, there should be a celebration of wrestling, and calling it Wrestling Weekend would be monumental to me. I think that's something that we're going to see happen. It will be interesting to see how the groups that are being impacted by that shift, how they can find a way to respond and keep their action going while they're being pushed further and further away from the main attraction that is in Tampa Bay, Tampa, Florida, in 2020. But looking back, let's focus on 2019 and what we have coming up next weekend, starting Wednesday. And the biggest question is, what are you really going to watch? You have an opportunity to get involved and watch a lot of different content that is going to be presented in a lot of different ways. Majority of it will be available online, and I'm seeing a lot of people that are excited about going to the events actually live. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what events are heralded the most, or what events are praised highly when talking heads like myself and others go back and recap WrestleMania weekend. I think I was looking at Christian Ashley from she writes for Fansided, and Fightful as well. I think she was talking about she's going to watch almost 40 hours of wrestling over that week, which is amazing. I'm not watching anywhere near that. She's a workhorse and she's killing it. But just to think that there's that much professional wrestling available at one time definitely lets you know how far we've come in this industry. It's no longer a time now where there's just one or two big fish and everyone else is kind of like floundering, waiting to drown. There is a space for continued growth in the industry with so many different opportunities, and you're seeing wrestlers take advantage of that. I'm interested in seeing what what happens after this week and or after next week, especially obviously with the WWE content. You know that after WrestleMania weekend is huge, and you know that the weeks after that are huge as well, as they kind of reshuffle, and they really are at a point where they need to reshuffle because while there are some good bits of content, there are some questionable pieces as well that we see on a week in and week out basis. So that's something to watch. But I'm certainly interested in what these organizations do WrestleMania weekend and who I get to see and who I become a fan of. There's so much going on that I'm sure I'm going to see someone that catches my eye and says, you know what, I want to watch this guy in the future. Like I said, like the ROH G1, excuse me, the G1 Supercard has some crazy matches lined up for it. Let me actually read off that. Um, let me read off that card. All right, so the full G1 Supercard is let's see. Okay, so they have an Honor Rumble. Jushin Liger is in it. Neverweight Open versus TV title match. This is going to be crazy. Will Ospreay versus Jeff Cobb. Don Castle versus Rush. This is another great match. Mayo Iwatani, who I've written about actually against Kelly Klein. I think that'll be a good women's match as well. Bully Ray in an open street fight challenge. People were initially speculating that they were trying to get CM Punk to appear. We all know that that's not happening. But I still think that'll be interesting to see who comes out. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship is a three-way match that, oh man, I wish I was there for this. You have Ishimori, the Bullet Club member, Bone Soldier, against Dragon Lee and Bandito. That right there alone, I would pay for a one-on-one match that is any combination of those three. But to see them all together, that's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to watch that match. I'm probably going to end up watching it on Fight TV just to kind of. I'm going to figure out a way to pay for this one because this is going to be a match worth seeing. We have the tag team titles where it's the God Guerrillas of Destiny against Brody King and PCO. You have Sonata and Evil, excuse me, against the Briscoes. You have Zack Sabre Jr. against Tanahashi. You have Naito against Ibushi. You have Jay Lethal against Matt Taven and Marty Scurll in the ladder match. And you have Jay White against Okada. How could that go wrong? This is a Madison Square Garden event, and they brought out all the big guns. It's easy to see why this caused the WWE to move their NXT TakeOver card because while NXT TakeOver is great, they don't put together cards in the same way, in the same fashion that would have made their show of higher demand than this one here. So, like I was saying, this weekend is set up to make people fans of new names that are not in the WWE, and I'm so looking forward to this as well. And one thing I definitely want to say is if you intend on watching at home, if you intend on, if you can't travel out to New York and you can't pay ticket prices, which is totally understandable, I'm going to ask that you do please purchase these events through whatever means the promoters ask, whether it's streaming services or something like that. While there may be some that may be available on YouTube, and these organizations often do put their content on YouTube once it's passed, purchase the content if you want to watch it live, because that's how the wrestlers get paid. We cannot steal from the promotions and expect these wrestlers to be able to thrive outside of the WWE if the promoters themselves aren't getting any money. So do not steal content. We've all done it. We've all streamed. But in situations like this, don't take from these organizations that need your $10 subscription rate, $20 subscription rate, $40 payment for a pay-per-view. Don't steal from them because they need that money and the wrestlers themselves need that money. But with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and close out this show. Just a quick one today because there's so much going on. So be sure to give us a follow at MMA Ratings Net. You can catch us on Instagram and Twitter you can catch us on Instagram and Twitter where you will see our frequent updates around mainly the mixed martial arts industry. And you can come back to YouTube on Thursdays, where Shawan and I have the MMA Ratings podcast. Episode 115 is tomorrow, where we will be talking about a lot of the big fight announcements for John Jones, Thiago Santos, Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, Marlon Morales, Henry Cejudo, so many different others. And as always, go to MMAratings.net, where you can rank the fights and let us know what you thought of the action that occurred in the cage, and also how excited you are for these fights and for these upcoming cards. Again, that's MMAratings.net, where you can go and rank the fights. My name is Raphael Garcia. You can catch me on Twitter at rgarcia_sports. I'm often talking about professional wrestling, MMA, movies. I do not spoil Avengers Endgame. We are less than a month away. Don't be a piece of shit. And there's so much other content that I talk about through my social media channels. So as always, I always say, if you do not believe Black Lives Matter, then I'm probably not the person for you to follow, because you will not like what I have to share. But either way, thank you all. Please like and subscribe to our MMA Ratings YouTube channel. I appreciate you taking the time to do so, and share our content for more people to see. We're almost at 100 subscribers. We are 6 away, so please feel free to hit that subscribe button. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic hump day, and make it through the rest of this week.